Good afternoon and welcome everyone in the gallery. I thank you very much for your attendance today and also all our viewers. So welcome to the December 9th regular council meeting, and I will call the meeting to order at 1 p.m. Are there any added items, council members, that you have? Seeing none, we'll move right down to adoption of the agenda, please. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I'd make the motion that council adopt the regular and closed council meeting agenda for Monday, December 9, 2024 at 1 p.m.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. We're moving down to the adoption of previous minutes at this time. We'll be looking for consent. We'll start with 2A, Special Council Meeting Minutes, November 25. Consent. The table says yes, so those are accepted. Regular council meeting minutes, November 25. No questions, consent, those are accepted. And special council meeting minutes, November 28. Yes, everyone's good with that. So all three sets of minutes have consent and have been passed. Move to item 3, please, of your agenda. This is our public hearing. Thank you. And it's page 10 of our agenda for the viewers or anyone that would like to know. This is with regards to bylaw 2024-45 for an advertising bylaw, and it's a joint public hearing, and 2024-47 land use bylaw amendment for advertising. So I will just move forward then. I see we have people in the gallery today as well. I will start with the pecuniary interest for our municipal councillors. Please bear with me, please. Section 172 of the MGA says that you are not allowed to take part into a discussion on decision-making on any matter in which you have a pecuniary interest. This is our municipal councillors I'm speaking at. The legislation attempts to ensure that you are not discriminated either for or against by virtue of your membership. On council, if you have a pecuniary interest, please, you are to disclose that you have an interest in its general nature. You are to abstain from any discussion of the matter and from voting. You are to leave the room until the matter has been dealt with, and you should make sure that your abstention is recorded in the minutes, and you are not to be discriminated against and are entitled to participate in a public hearing as a member of the public. I declare the public hearing open at 1:03 p.m. And now I ask the municipal land use planner to explain the purpose and effect of the proposed bylaws.
Good afternoon, Mayor, councillors, member of the public. The advertising bylaw is an avenue provided by the MGA, Municipal Government Act, to enable council to provide alternative forms of advertising. Administration believes that passing this advertising bylaw will allow for greater flexibility on how we advertise and communicate with the public. This also requires an amendment to the land use bylaw to ensure consistency between those two bylaws, which is why you have a joint public hearing in front of you. These two bylaws received first reading on November 12th, 2024. Notice of the public hearing was advertised on the town website and in the November 26th and December 3rd issues of the Olds Albertan. Administration received 2 written responses regarding the proposed bylaws, one in support and one against, which are attached. We also received another written response opposed that I'll read into the record at that point in time. Thank you.
There you go. Thank you very much. And that was our Manager Planning and Infrastructure, James Cruiser. I will now proceed down to explain the procedure for the presentations. If those of you choose to speak, presentations before council shall be brief and to the point, limited to 5 minutes. Council shall not allow cross-examination of persons giving information, and it will not be necessary for the persons giving information to verify his or her qualifications. Council may ask questions of the speakers after each presentation for clarification purposes, and no debating or questions from the floor will be allowed. No written or verbal submissions will be received by council after the public hearing is closed. Persons addressing council will state their name and address to our legislative clerk, indicate if they are speaking on their own behalf or for a client, company, and/or citizen group. We will now move forward, and I will call for the first time for all those in support of the proposed bylaw to come forward. I will call a second time for all those in support of the proposed bylaw to come forward for a presentation. Seeing none, I call for the first time for all those opposed to the proposed bylaw to come forward if they choose. Thank you.
Thank you. For me to condense this into 5
Oh,
minutes,
we'll have to get the mic on, and then
It's
again,
on?
we know who you are.
And for me to do this under 5 minutes, it's going to be a challenge, but if you can indulge me for a couple extra minutes, I will be quick. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Murray Elliott, and I'm the publisher of the Albertan. I'm here to speak about the proposed bylaw, but before that, I want to give you a little brief background on my business. My business, like so many others, suffered considerably during the pandemic and post-pandemic. Our business dropped 50% just about overnight. I had to shed 40% of my staff. I still have offices in the outlying towns, but we've had to really cut back. I have one reporter here, one reporter in Innisfail. We used to have 2. We used to have a professional photographer. We're doing a lot more with less. And because of this, we morphed it into the Albertan rather than leaving news deserts and these other towns, which actually would be easier for us, but we believe in community, and we believe in community newspapers. Town advertising and county advertising is making up a much bigger percentage of our advertising base. We still have regular advertisers, but it's keeping us, particularly in the surrounding areas, it's one of the only reasons we're still there. The reasons we still have an office, the reasons we still have a reporter, and the reason we still have salespeople and contribute back to each community. I'm a shareholder with Great West, a small Alberta media company. I'm part of a group of like-minded people. We have a passion for news, and we have a passion for our communities. We're outliers. Don't think that the Albertan is the norm. There are towns our size and larger who either don't have newspapers or are underserved. They have newspapers without local reporting, certainly without publishers, without salespeople, and without a presence. They don't have offices anymore. I'm confident we can continue with the help of the town of Olds and others to do what we're doing, because I think it's important for democracy and it's important to the citizens of Olds and area. We've tried to make the digital transition, and we continue to. As a Great West company, we have spent millions of dollars on the digital products. We have 145,000 page views for the Albertan. The dog has caught the car, but we can't sell it. We're trying, and it's increasing. We would love to go to a pure digital model because it would save a lot of money. But that transition is difficult. The giants of Google and Facebook make it extremely difficult, and their pricing and their reach, and also with Facebook and X, they can run whatever they want with impunity. We're bound by the laws of libel, so we don't have the luxury of running conspiracy theories and hateful speech. I don't think anybody can deny that our paper is read. Come by my office on a Tuesday. If we have a downed route, if they didn't get their flyer, they're grabbing papers. I can't quantify it. We haven't done a study. I sent a general study out done by Totem that confirms that weekly newspapers are picked up. I just read the submission I read it over Doug's shoulder about 15, 20 minutes ago, and I thought, what a well-read submission. She doesn't like what I have to say, I don't think, but she's a newspaper reader. She's a voracious reader, and she's obviously clever. And again, I only had a chance to read it once, but one of her objections was when she lived in Innisfail, she didn't get the paper at her apartment, and now she's objecting that she only gets it on Thursday. But what that tells me is she's a devoted reader. She read the story in the paper, she read the notices, and it also shows me that we have to get that product to people, because our e-edition, which has considerable reach as well, it's an online version of our newspaper. And it's available generally on Tuesdays. So if you want to read public notices or anything else in the paper, it's there. Every retail shop has our newspaper. In every town we serve, we go through thousands in the different stores. So we're easily accessible, but people are used to getting this paper on their doorstep, and they're mad when they don't. They take ownership. On another related note, have you noticed our flyer load? How big it is, particularly during the strike? Do you not think that giant retailers would love to bypass us rather than spending hundreds of millions of dollars using newspapers to get their flyers out? They have newsletters they send out. They have all our personal information to send out deals. But they use us because we get to the door. And more recently, in another town, a large grocery chain, quit using traditional media. So that no flyers, no newspaper, radio, no legacy. And what happened is they realized with the demographics and the readership of our paper, they weren't getting out there. So they started running full pages with us. That is now dovetailed into the local retailer spending a half page a week with me, which is a lot of money, and also a strong online presence. They realized they need our product to get out to people. Flyers like public notices, when they're easily accessible and in your face, they work. And that letter, that submission confirmed that. It has to get to me. People are loath to look for news. I don't think they're going to spend a lot of time looking for a public notice on a site. I know they won't. We call it the push-pull in our business. If we push that product on you, you're far more likely to read it than if you have to search. Again, the submission confirms that. You can go and read our e-edition on Tuesday, but you're used to getting that newspaper. What perhaps many of you aren't aware of, and I suspect some of you do, because of the good customers like the town of Olds, we offer a lot of free space. Just off the top of my head, Chamber Chat, Uptown Olds profiles, things we do for ORE. I'm not a charitable, but I believe in being charitable. If we're asked, Doug is very good about if we're asked to do a story, I certainly donate advertising. That's frequent, and people I don't think recognize that we do that. I've also mentioned in my handout, St. Albert voted against this, as did Banff, and Canmore continues to use public submissions. They are obviously bigger communities, have a considerably younger demographic than Olds, but they decided their paper should be the main venue, and it's worth the price. And I guess the price would be there's a bit of a delay. I can also tell you that Innisfail, I did the same presentation a couple of years ago, and it was a contentious time. They don't all love a reporter. Not everybody loves what Doug does every week either. But they respected the newspaper. It came through loud and clear. They continue to run their notices, as does Sundry, because they realized they could potentially be a news desert if they leave us. I would hope you, like other councils, recognize that our weekly publishing cycle may be perceived as an inconvenience to administration and some developers, but it's a small price to pay and a worthy obligation to offer our citizens a reliable, easily accessible means of communication every week. Thank you for your time and consideration. I hope I didn't go way over. Okay. Any questions for me?
Well, thank you very much. I thought you did pretty good in the time limit that you had.
I rushed it through.
Yes, I will be getting to council. I'll just confirm first, does any councilors have questions for Mr. Elliott at this time? Yes, Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Through you to Murray. Just a quick question. Can you explain how town notices or advertisements would get through onto your e-edition? Do they have to first appear in print and then get into
No.
the e-edition?
No, we're generally up on Tuesdays, sometimes Wednesdays. They're there. When we have a fair number of e-edition readers, and they're sticky readers. It's a minimum of 9 minutes on the paper. Well, nobody reads anything for 9 minutes anymore, so that's not a bad number. A lot of snowbirds, obviously, prefer the e-edition. So they're there. That's part of the deal. The advertising's online. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, through you to Mr. Elliott. Can you tell me, is your deadline faster with it being on, the e-newspaper as opposed to the print? Like, is your deadlines quicker turnaround?
No. No, it isn't. It would come out, it still comes out on Tuesday. I've never thought of that before.
No, I meant for your advertising, like, when your current advertising deadlines, I think, are what, noon on Friday?
Right.
Could you do something like noon on Monday or noon, what is your deadline for
That
your?
would be a different
e-
animal because it's replicating the printed product. I have never considered that. Could we put in a later ad that ends up online?
Yeah.
I've never considered that. Perhaps we could. I could certainly look into it.
Much. I mean, it would speed up the process, and that's the whole idea
Right.
behind this.
Further questions? Excuse me.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you,
Thanks for your
Mr.
time.
Elliott. We will then,
Do I press that?
I will then move forward to ask for the second time for those that are opposed that wish to speak.
Thank you. I'll take this opportunity to read into the record the letter we received after the deadline, which was a letter in opposition. Council was presented a copy earlier, but just so it hits the minutes, I'll read it in. This letter was received by Peter Primachuk. His letter reads, I am writing in regards to the above noted bylaws. Although under the heading, your website under scheduled public hearings, bylaw number 2024-35 is also listed as a bylaw on the subject. While I understand the need for alternative methods for publication of the business of the town of Olds, I believe that publication in the Albertan of such matters, including notices of development, it's vital information to citizens of Olds. I use the Albertan as the source of news on all my matters concerning Olds, including town of Olds business. I rarely use the Town of Olds website for such matters. I do spend time outside of Olds during the year and also find the digital editions of the Albertan useful during these times. As a citizen of Olds, I have come to appreciate the news and updating the Albertan provides for Olds and surrounding areas and use this as my main source of information. The Albertan is my comprehensive source. At this time, I believe the Town of Olds information is better pushed to us via the local newspaper as it is currently. Any other publication method used by the Town of Olds should be used in conjunction with and not replace the information in the Albertan. Thank you for your consideration of the above. Peter Perbichuk. I will just note, he did mention bylaw 2024-35 posted on the website. That was just a misprint for your information. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, I will continue down on to the first time for those deemed to be affected by this bylaw, this joint bylaw. Oh. We usually ask twice, but are you opposed? You'd like to speak? Please approach the podium.
We'll just put it nice and close.
Thank you.
Say your name.
Thank you. My name is Ross DeBruzen. I live in the county. I recently moved out of a box onto a road. Canada Post changes our address. So I'm 32306 Range Road 23 in Mountain View County now. I moved out of Olds, so there I am. Thank you for this opportunity. I should say that I am in support of the efforts to increase notification from the council and all that, and I see this as an effort to do that. I would like to point out that I don't think any method gets the full community. I belong to the Mountain View Film Group, and we put up about 100 or more posters all over town, and we took a survey, and people said they didn't know about us. So that's one of the points. The other thing is I value our local newspaper. For one thing, they are local, and Murray Elliott started it, and as opposed to large companies, I've researched this a bit, and some of the headlines I saw said the 6 companies that own almost all media. That was one title. And if you go to this model, I'm wondering if you're going to go to places like Amazon and X, so that the money will be going to Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. Is that the intent here? Because that's what would happen if you went online to do that. I should say that the local newspapers are in trouble. The figures I saw, that was 516 closures since 2008, 36 in 2023 alone. Community newspapers are in trouble. We can notice that even our local newspaper, the Albertan, as Murray said, used to have reporters and offices and separate publications in places like Innisfail. So it's shrinking, and it's getting more difficult. I can see by the size of the paper that certain advertising is going elsewhere. And I would encourage council not to continue with that. I would actually like to read into the record. I found this notice that said Post Media closes 12 community newspapers in Alberta. And it says Post Media is churning out AI-written columns. And it's losing. And I'll mention the communities: Drayton Valley Western Revenue, Airdrie Echo, Peace County News, Fort McMurray Today, Leduc County Market, Cochrane Times, Bow Valley, Cold Lake Sun, Hannah Herald, you get the idea. I would hope that you would not be a part of contributing to this while wanting to forward your own ends. I don't think this is the way to do it. Our paper provides, first of all, it's available to everybody. It comes free, and if you don't get it at home, it's posted. There's a pile in the post office when it's open, and there's a pile in the seniors' homes. They're all over, and it's a tradition. People know where to look for their local news. It's the Albertan, and there will be a certain number of people you would pick up online, but I don't think the trade-off. The problem is the danger of losing our local newspaper, and Mr. Elliott has already referred to the revenue that the town provides for him and has provided. The local newspaper, should it disappear, we will miss things like letters to the editor, which tells us like what community members are saying. We will miss things like community events and sports. Who's going to report on the high school sports events and on all the other events happening in this community at the Cow Palace or whatever? It is in the Albertan. That's where we look for it. So one of the titles of these articles said, "Flurry of newspaper closures raises concerns about the future of local news." And that's my concern. And so I know you've got this possibility of flexibility, but I'm hoping that you don't proceed in that way. I think this comes under the category of unintended collateral damage. While the council is trying to forward some of their needs and wants to get out more news, I would suggest that this is not the best way to do it because it jeopardizes our local newspaper. And I guess I'll close by reading another editorial that I read online, and it said, "Loss of local news means loss of community." Thank you.
Thank you. I believe that is the end. Are there any others opposed? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move down to those deemed affected. I see none at that time either, so we will now go down to council comments and/or CAO comments. I would like to make one comment, just to start off as council. There's really, what we have learned, that there'll be no changes to our advertising mediums that are being proposed. We will be continuing advertising being via the traditional electronic methods. This is to ensure consistency in both process and language. There's no plans to change the current scope of advertising sources in traditional media, example, the newspapers and radio. I understand fully the comments I've heard, and I would like to open the floor to councillors as well. We'll start with Councillor Wilson and then Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and I will provide my unrehearsed, off-the-cuff and from-the-heart comment, and appreciate the comments that have been made. I agree wholeheartedly. One of the things that makes Olds unique is not only the print media that we have available, but also the radio station. Very essential, and what makes unique the town of Olds as a desirable community. To me, I look at this as it's just one more tool in the toolbox of the town. As far as communication, the town has an obligation and responsibility, as has been said here, to reach as many people as possible in whatever media and communication channel that looks like, whether it be print or digital or airwaves. I look at this, as I said, as just one more tool in the toolbox to make sure that we are getting the information out, whether that is advertising, whether that's public notice, whether that is planning and development information, or just general updates. So at this point, I guess I'm saying I'm in favor of the bylaw. Mayor Dahl, I think, said it well, and I will direct a question through her to the CAO just to reaffirm that this bylaw is not intended, in my understanding, to displace or replace the print media notifications. As Mayor Dahl said, this would be something in addition to supplemental, complementary, rather than replacing one form of media channel with another. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct for all intents and purposes, Councillor Wilson. How it was explained, I wasn't here during first reading, so for that I apologize, but it has nothing to do with the current advertising budget. As councils can see later, there's no projected change to our 2025 advertising budget, but the MGA has a few rules, and Section 606 is referenced on the screen in the request for decision, that unless an advertising bylaw is in place, notification must be given for at least 2 consecutive weeks in a newspaper, local newspaper. And that will continue to be so. However, we do find 2 things. The first is the fact that the notification period can't begin until that newspaper is published, and given the change in, or the discrepancy between council meeting days and the newspaper deadline, it does add about at least a week on each side, or at least 1 week, sometimes 2 weeks on each side of the advertising we need to get out. So this will provide that flexibility to begin that notification period sooner and using the newspaper in the same way we do now. The second piece is just human error. When the planning department gets busy, they are a small department, sometimes things get missed. And a newspaper deadline can be one of them with advertisements, so that allows us to mitigate that should that human error happen. But to your question again, no, there's no intent to decrease our advertising spend in the Albertan, nor on the radio. And to Mr. Elliott's points, we certainly do recognize the value the Albertan has in our community, and with the other gentleman read into the record, the spat of newspaper closures elsewhere is not something we want to see happen here, and we do support the newspaper, what it tries to do here, and it's not something, I think, to use Mr. Elliott's words, inconvenience of any sort to us or developers, even though developers haven't been part of this conversation. It's largely just to provide us more flexibility to, as we increase in volume, as we have seen, certainly recently with development and permitting applications, and to build on our current communication strategy. But the Albertan will continue to be one of our primary tools in the same way as you've seen it recently.
We've got others to speak, and then I'll come back to you. Very good, thank you. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I was only going to say that, ask for clarity. I was under the impression that we were only having this bylaw in place, particularly to expedite some of the planning and development department's processes. And I mean, I do appreciate what the paper does, and I do enjoy reading what other communities in Mountain View County are doing, and it does give us an overview of you know, challenges and the good and the bad stories per se that we all read about. But I just wanted to just get that clarity, and that's been given by both yourself, the CAO, and Councillor Wilson. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. Councillor Ryan.
Well, thank you very much, Mayor Dolan. I appreciate the comments from our CEO because it makes it very clear that there is support by the town for the newspaper. As a former journalist, I do both dailies and weekly newspapers. I know the value of newspapers and what they bring to a community. And so I too would not want to see us abandon that form of advertising. And sure, even in the agenda package, it says very clearly that there are no plans to change the current scope. So I just want to make sure that everybody realizes that we have no plans to change. This is only a complement to what we're already doing. And in fact, I think it's actually a good complement because it allows us the flexibility and speeds up development permits. So I'm in support of this, even though I also support the paper. So there you go.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I would also like to echo the comments that have already been said here today, that I appreciate the local news aspect of the Olds Albertan. Myself, I do not receive the paper copied, and so I am relying on the electronic version of the Olds Albertan. And so, and I rely on that every week to go in and see what's happening in our community and keep up to date with what's going on. And so I can see where Councillor Wilson's comment about giving us another tool in the toolbox, in that we can then look for these electronic means of getting some of this information out too, for us that do not receive the paper version. And as Marie says, we may be looking at a different animal going forward, which would be beneficial not only to the Olds Albertan, but to the town of Olds as well. And so I support this, in that we're not going to leave the Olds Albertan, and that we still do appreciate its service and its commitment to our community. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And back to Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just make the brief comment. I'll introduce a term that council may not have heard, but it piggybacks on Councillor Ryan's comment. And to me, I see this all as part of quick, nimble, agile. And Councillor Ryan touched on that. Again, this is just another way to make sure we get the message out to as many people as possible in as many different forms and forums quickly in a nimble, agile fashion. Thank you.
Thank you. I've gone around the table. Are there any other councillors that wish to speak? Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. I think if we were to go to page 40, and if you had noted that we're only deleting one section and adding another, and that is the basic change that we're making to this bylaw. And I think that is something that everyone here could have a quick peruse of and understand fully what councils and administration is intending to do today.
Thank you very much. We've heard from council comments at this time. I see no more comments. So I will then again ask Manager Planning and Infrastructure, Mr. Cruiser, would you like to add final comments?
Thank you again. I think I'll just reiterate what the CAO said, in that our department has no plans to change our procedures when it comes to advertising moving forward. And I think all the other comments were captured nicely. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And so that at this time then, I will declare the public hearing closed at 1:35 p.m. I would encourage council then to please go to page 10 of your agenda for the joint public hearing and start with advertising bylaw giving second reading. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the advertising bylaw number 2024-45 be given second reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. Deputy Mayor Cummings?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So in the expedience of not repeating myself, I didn't speak during the public hearing because this is the value place for debate on this topic. So I am supporting the bylaw, both bylaws, the land use amendment bylaw and this one. However, what I've heard here today is that we've got unequivocal support for the newspaper. And what I wrote down in my notes here while everybody was talking was fears created by the lack of policy in a decisive direction. I'm thinking this is a great opportunity to develop a policy on advertising. We don't have one currently. I'm sure we have procedures for advertising, but we don't have a policy on advertising. What we have is a bylaw. The bylaw meets all of the requirements we need for the MGA to get the business process of the town done quickly. I think we've all agreed on that getting the town's work done fast and the most expedient way is good for everybody involved in doing business with the town. So I'm full support of the bylaw changes for that. But I would be remiss in not bringing up the concept of a advertising or a policy in which we as a council affirm our belief that advertising locally in multiple medias, including the newspaper and the radio, would be advantageous to the town, the citizens of the town and this council in the conducting of business as well as just keeping the community informed. So I will support both of these bylaws, but I would also ask this council to come back with a direction to the CAO to investigate and develop a policy that we can support on advertising moving forward. I think that's the best way to address all of the issues we've all brought up here today and keeping our newspaper and the citizens that read our newspaper and listen to our radio station as well informed as possible, as well as conducting our business in the most efficient and effective manner. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. I see nothing further. We have a motion on the floor to give 2024-45 second reading. I will then call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. And I noticed that Councillor Ryan had her hand up, so I'll ask for third reading, please.
Oh, thank you very much, Mayor Dahl. I move that the advertising bylaw number bylaw 2024-45 be given third reading as presented.
Thank you. Look around the room. We're good. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. We're now going to the land use amendment bylaw for second reading. Councillor Walsh?
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the land use amendment bylaw number 2024-47 be given second reading as presented.
The motion reads for second reading. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And third and final reading, please. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that land use amendment bylaw number 2024-47 be given third reading as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Once again, I really appreciate all the time and effort that everybody in the gallery has brought in the conclusion of this joint public hearing. We will be moving on now to...
Madam Mayor, if I could just...
Yes? Deputy Mayor?
Thank you. I did mention in my discussion on the one bylaw that we did pass there, the opportunity of council to discuss quickly the idea of asking the administration to come back with a policy on advertising more reflective of the conversation we had here today. So I will put a motion on the floor if I can. I will put a motion on the floor that the CAO bring back to council an advertising policy in principle reflective of the concerns raised at our meeting today.
Thank you. C.O. Williams?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Just to Councillor Cummings' point, Council does have policy 105C, communication and response. In section 3 of that policy, it does speak to on council's decisions, for example, which I think land use bylaws would be applicable. The Town of Old's website is the primary avenue of that. The policy, along with, I believe it's media relations and social media, there's 3 communications policies. They're due to come to council in 2025 for review as per your schedule. So we just wanted to make you aware of that there will be an opportunity in the coming months to look at those 3 policies, and with the communication strategy we've been developing internally as a procedure document, which I believe council sees a draft of. There will be that opportunity forthcoming. So your motion obviously still stands. If your intention falls outside of what's captured currently in those 3 policies, or what could be possible with amending one or more of those 3 policies, but just for council's information prior to moving forward.
Thank you for that direct information. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I did look at the policy 105C, because I thought that would be the one that would encompass this most succinctly, and I didn't see anything really about advertising, mostly about information sharing on decisions that we've made. I wasn't sure if we could modify 105C to incorporate the concepts we discussed today, or if a whole new bylaw would be, or a whole new policy would be the best direction. I would leave that entirely up to you if we want to amend friendly the motion I have on the floor to say maybe bring back as a revision to 105C the concepts that were discussed today about advertising in our local media. That's the gist of what I want to see in a policy coming forward, is that we are going to commit through policy to continue to advertise inside of our local media, whether that be the radio or the newspaper. I think that commitment is what I heard here today from council. Everybody is supportive of the newspaper. It's what I heard. I shake your head all you want, but it's what I heard today from multiple people who spoke. So if that's could be worded a little bit differently to include a review of 105C to specifically ask for that, what's your opinion on that, CAO?
I think I don't have an opinion on council's motions. It makes motion whatever you want. I just wanted to share that the 3 communications policies are on the legislative clerk's agenda to bring forward to council. I don't think we have a date yet, to be fair, though. February. So they are forthcoming, but again, if yourself, Councillor Cummings, and council feels the need to have specific direction, I'll take whatever direction council provides me with.
Councillor Wilson, before I go back to the closure.
Well, thank you, Mayor Dahl. My thoughts and feelings will become evident during a vote, once we vote on this, but I'm fine based on what the CAO has said and the legislative coordinator. We're going to get the policies for comms or communications coming through sometime early 2025. I'm fine to wait until then. If there is a gap that fails to address what we've heard today, and I agree with Councillor Cummings and what we've heard, that the commitment to maintain the advertising with the various other channels, i.e. radio and or print. If it's not properly addressed, then I've heard the CEO said open to amendment and change, so I'm fine to let this process evolve.
Thank you, Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and Councillor Wilson took the words out of my mouth. I think that we have this policy scheduled to come forward, and I think I'm happy to wait to that time and then review it with the information that we've gathered from our citizens here today and instill that into that policy upon the time of renewal. So I'm good with that.
Thank you very much. Deputy Mayor, closing?
No, I'll remove the motion from the floor.
Deputy Mayor Cummings withdraws his motion. All in favor for that? We don't have to be? Okay, I thought at one time we had to agree to it. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Very good. Therefore, we will continue on in our agenda to the next subject, item 4, delegations and presentations, page 41 of your agenda. This is the delegation for the Men's Shed Art Space presentations. CAO Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and I will pass this over to Director Guy Lapointe.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mayor Dahl and Council. This afternoon, administration is presenting the Olds Men's Shed and Community Arts Hub Revitalization Project for Council's review and approval. Council received an initial project presentation regarding this initiative earlier this year. The concept looks to repurpose the former operations shop located at 4825 51st Street into the home for the Men's Shed and Community Arts Hub. As you know, that building is currently underutilized and requires significant remediation if the site were to be developed for another purpose. Administration understands that it is Council's desire to revitalize the East Olds area and believes this property is suitable to support community activation. At Council's direction, we have been conducting community engagement around the initiative throughout the year. An engagement session at the proposed site attracted approximately 90 attendees who were very interested in hearing more about the opportunity and excited by the prospects. As of October, and as a result of the engagement, the Men's Shed of Olds has started to take shape and is in the process of recruiting individuals while also applying to become a registered nonprofit society. As you may recall, the Men's Shed's mandate is to help reduce social isolation and improve mental wellness for older men. Other opportunities are also being pursued for the space, as the Men's Shed would not be active throughout the week. A community arts hub is proposed, and it's worthwhile to note that this group is currently active and engaged, but without a home or a space for a base of operations. Finally, Mountain View Moccasin House has expressed interest in utilizing the building as well. Their programming will be a welcome addition to the initiative, as they will further help to promote diversity and cultural awareness. To assist with advancing this project, administration will apply for grants such as the Green and Inclusive Community Buildings Grant. Proposed renovations are limited to the interior, as the building envelope is sound, and major changes to the structure could trigger more extensive remediation requirements. The GICB grant will provide up to 80% of the total project costs, and you may be familiar with this grant as we recently accessed it to support the ongoing aquatic center improvements. Should Council support the recommendation to support the Men's Shed, Community Arts Hub, and Moccasin House, administration is also suggesting a further commitment to cover utility and insurance costs as an ongoing support to the project. The timeline for opening the doors would be fall 2025, as there's an existing lease that expires in March, with renovations to follow through to about October. That timeline will change should grant efforts be unsuccessful with a more phased-in approach, prioritizing more critical changes required to use the space as a public building. And with that, I'm open to any questions that Council may have.
Thank you, Director Lapointe. Does council have any questions? Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and no real question, just a comment here. And looking at these drawings of this proposed, of the Men's Shed, I noticed that the community gardens are going to be placed along the side of the building. And I think that's something, or that's what it appears to be, raised beds of some sort there. And I know that is something that council had hoped to see in the future. So I'm very pleased to see this will be a multi-purpose, multi-use building.
Yes, thank you for that. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. And yes, I echo Councillor Blatz's comments. I really like these artist rendering diagrams, so if we can replicate those to the exact T, let's do her. Of course, being mindful of the cost and where the funding is going to come from. I have two questions, one supplementary to the other. One is perhaps through the mayor, rather to yourself, Director, or through the CAO. Where and how does, when we get to that stage, does the Men's Shed fall relative to the criteria for Mountain View Power granting? And perhaps, Director Lapointe, could you also comment just a little bit? I know Sundry's got a Men's Shed initiative going, I think Innisfail. Could you, it's a little bit outside the scope of this ask, but talk a little bit about the interconnectedness of all the Men's Shed initiatives that are underway in central Alberta? Thank you.
We're just going to get an answer back, or were you looking to answer? Okay, we'll go to Director Lapointe.
I think from the interconnectedness side of things, obviously, this is something that's gaining momentum post-COVID. And obviously, older men, they've been a little shy to speak up and talk about mental health. And so this offers a safe space in an environment that they're kind of used to at this point. And so I know that FCSS has been very active talking to the other locations and their partners who are looking at this. And obviously the success that you're seeing in other communities is one of the reasons we're bringing this forward today.
Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dole. I just have a question, and I think this is a great idea, being an older guy. All right. I think this is great. You mentioned, of course, the Arts Committee being part of this, as well as Moccasin House. Is this going to be in a facility that's going to be available to other groups within the community of Olds? Right now, there are several different committees and groups that are looking for space to do exactly the same thing, or group meetings and so forth. Would this be something that would be able to be booked out and to be utilized by other groups?
Through the chair, absolutely. I think, again, firstly, we want to get the doors open and accommodate these first 3 groups. And then, space willing and time permitting, we'd obviously want to see this space active and used by as many users as possible.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mayor. So, huge fan of the Min Shed and the Min Shed's concept. I'm on the mailing list, haven't made a meeting yet, but I'm trying. So I'm a big supporter of the Min Shed concept in town, and I see this building, from the looks of the 3 groups that you've mentioned so far, kind of like a workshop production facility, someplace where we can get tools on and hands dirty sort of environment, as opposed to the Jean's Place, which is more of a meeting place for the FCSS and our community group. So I think this is a great organization, a great plan, and I support it fully.
Thank you. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you very much, Mayor Dolan, through you to Director Lapointe. Where do we donate tools?
I think we could accommodate that.
You're probably not ready for that yet, but I'm sure that there is enough interest in the community that you'll find that there's support out there for it, so.
Absolutely. I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the former operations shop building located at 4825 51st Street be repurposed for community activation as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. It sounds like a real dream to come true, that the man can have some fun instead of us trying to keep him busy. Very good, thank you, very good. Moving down to page 49, 4B item, development permit DP 24-205 for 4614 47th Street. Thank you. And we have who do we have today? Right, Nate, go ahead, it's yours.
All right, thank you for, excuse me, thank you very much, Council. This application is for an existing accessory building with a variance to a property line. Speaking of human error earlier, in the first paragraph of my RFD, I specified as 6215 Douglas Place. It is on 4614 47th Street. And this application arose as a result of a complaint from a neighbor about a shed near a property line, inquiring if a permit or if a building had all necessary approvals to be located at close to the property line. I understand the neighbor doesn't actually have objections to the building itself. The building is located 0.3 meters off of the property line. We have a setback of 1 meter. Because the variance is over 15%, that's why it's in front of you today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does council have any questions? Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Through you to the development officer, is this on permanent? Is this on a permanent floor, or is this a wooden floor on skids, or what is the whole specification?
My understanding is that it's on a temporary foundation. However, the applicant doesn't have any other place to put the shed. So that's why I encourage them to relocate, but they're unable to, and that's why it's here today.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our development officer? Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. I'm just wondering, how long has this shed been there for, if you can tell me that?
I believe it was located there within the last 6 months or so.
The Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan, through you to Development Officer Hill. What was the nature of the complaint? Is it a drainage issue? Is it something that's going to affect the other neighbor, you know, in a negative way per se? Is there maybe, and that's not necessary to ask that question, but I mean, really, we've granted an awful lot of these variances, and unless it was going to be a drainage issue, something that was going to flood the neighbor's garage, because it appears to be awfully close to there, I can't really see an issue not to grant this variance, but that would be my only question.
Yep, thank you through the chair. I'm unaware of any impacts on the adjacent property.
Thank you for that.
Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. I guess the question I would have, when you take a look at the picture on page 52, I mean, they certainly could move that shed away from that fence or the garage next to them just by moving it over slightly. There's room to move it over, so I don't understand why they couldn't do that. Do you have any opinion on that?
Yes, I understand that the doors of the shed are located towards the landing, and if they moved it towards that opening, then they wouldn't be able to open and access the shed.
Thank you for that answer. Any other questions? I think you've answered what I was going to ask anyways. I was more or less thinking on the same lines as Councillor Blatz, but if it's not going to cause any issues, you've actually got the conditions, so that's very important. Seeing none, may I please get a motion on the floor? Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that council approve development permit application DP 24-205 as presented, subject to the conditions listed in the attached draft development permit.
Thank you. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. Call your attention to bylaws, page 58, please, of your agenda. All right. This is the rates bylaw, 2024-14, and we're looking for first, second, third, and consent and third and final reading. Are you, C.O. Williams?
Thanks, Mayor Dahl. Director Lindeman will take us through this one.
Thank you. So the rates bylaw was presented to council for the first time last Monday at the Committee of the Whole. Since that time, there have been 2 changes made to the bylaw that is being presented today. The first is the effective date of the bylaw. It has been changed to, say, January 1st, 2025, just to ease administering the rate charges. We didn't want to do it mid-December. And the second change is on Schedule F. That is the water and wastewater rates. Changes have been made to the implementation of the water meter replacement rate. So instead of the residential and non-residential rates, it is now in there by meter size, which would better reflect the actual costs of the meter installation. And with that, I would open up to any questions.
Yes, thank you for that overview. Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan, through you to Director Lindeman. Just to let you know that I don't know if it'll affect the rates, and I had the conversation with CEO Williams late on Friday following our wastewater commission meeting, but the rate went up from 2.77 to 2.78. So I don't know if how that will affect your rate charge for the wastewater, because I know that it was going to be unchanged, and that extra penny, I don't know if it makes that much difference, but I just thought I'd let you know that.
Thank you. I would have to obviously look at it closer, but I don't think at this time we would need to make a change.
Very good, and thank you for that update, Councillor Ryan. Any further questions before, okay, I'm looking for first reading, please. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that first reading be given to bylaw 2024-14 rates bylaw.
First reading on the floor. I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. And second reading, please. Councillor Blatt.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that second reading be given to bylaw 2024-14 rates bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor Blatz. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. A unanimous consent, please. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that unanimous consent be given to present bylaw 2024-14 rate bylaw for third reading.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And Councillor Walsh, third and final reading, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that third reading be given to bylaw 2024-14, a rates bylaw.
Thank you, Councillor Walsh. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. I'd call your attention, please, now to page, where are we going down to? 78 in your agenda, and this is the bylaw 2024-46 election bylaw. We're asking for consideration to be given for all three readings. Go ahead, C.O. Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Dahl. This was brought to the committee of the whole last week. No, don't believe any comments were added, perhaps just one for clarity, but it basically reads as it was presented then.
Okay, we'll move forward then. We'll start with first reading, please. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council gives first reading to election bylaw 2024-46 as presented.
Very good. We have had a lot of information on this, and I just want to thank C.O. Williams and Legislative Clerk and any staff involved. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Second reading, please. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council give second reading to election bylaw 2024-46 as presented.
We'll now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And unanimous consent over on this side. Councillor Walsh.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that council gives unanimous consent for third reading of bylaw 2024-46.
Thank you. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Councillor Daly will do third and final reading.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that council gives third reading to election bylaw 2024-46 as presented.
Thank you. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? Councillor Blatz? Okay. That's carried. Very good. And thank you again for all the work on that. It's been extensive. New business, please. Page 81 of your agenda. This is the Committee of the Whole Policy Recommendations, item 6A. We are looking to approve Policy 119C and 233C. I'll put the first motion on the floor. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that council approve policy 119C, naming right, as presented.
Thank you. I see no questions, so we will move forward with the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. And for the second policy, 233C, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I move that council approve policy 233C rates as presented.
I will now call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. New business, page, new business 6B, please, page 97 of your agenda. And this is, again, I'll turn it over to C.O. Williams. I'm not sure who's doing this.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I'll just provide brief comment and hand it over to Sheena to go through our summary of our previous meeting and how we arrived at today's proposed operating and capital budget for council's consideration. A note on what's going to happen in April when we set our tax rates via the tax rates bylaw. So it wasn't exactly arrived upon last week, but based on what we said even last year and presented to council, administration is going to be recommending in April equivalent, essentially a 5% mill rate increase, or the revenue increase based on where the assessment comes in at. So a 5% increase to taxation revenue is what administration will recommend in the spring. And then the recommendation will be then to offset in various ways the other implications through reserves. So in case I'm preempting questions that would probably come up through this, we can't really answer to certainty until spring, just based on assessment numbers and our mill rates, but that's what administration will be recommending to council based on this budget come April. So on that note, I'll hand over to Sheena to provide a summary of how she got to today's numbers based on December 2nd's recommendations, and we'll take council's queries from there.
Thank you. So the operating and capital budgets were presented to council in detail on November 25th and November 28th. On December 2nd, at the Committee of the Whole meeting, council gave administration direction on the projects to be included in what is today's budget. So the operating budget being presented today for approval is a total of $35,887,272. This is an increase of $1,183,303 over 2024. 1.3% or $445,000 of this increase is attributed to inflation. The other 2.1% or $737,891 are the new projects that have been included. These were all listed on page 98 of your agenda. So currently, the $737,891 is being funded through tax revenue, which would be an approximate 7% tax revenue increase. As CAO just mentioned, though, administration will be recommending in April to keep this tax revenue increase at 5% and the remaining coming from reserves. And again, that will be when assessments are finalized and the tax rates are brought forward in April. Then the capital budget, again, this budget was discussed in detail over the last few weeks. Council gave direction for all of the projects that have been included in today's capital budget. They are, and then if you look on page 121 of your agenda, those are the items that were taken out of the capital budget. With all of that said, the capital budget being presented today is $5,524,000. And I would open up to any questions from council.
We will start with Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. Through you to either CAO Williams or Director Linderman, and probably CAO Williams. But noted on page 98, I noticed that we had all agreed to the municipal enforcement officer, but I don't notice here the HR administrative position, and I thought I am supportive of that, and the reasons being that I know CAO Williams had stated that he could possibly spread the work around, but I do think that maybe in the spring, this is a position that could hopefully come back to council for reconsideration, because I really don't want to see either something missed, because this is through the HR department, and we recognize what the organizational review stated in regards to the HR department, and I think it is a position that could be very important to the overall structure of our organization. So I would hope that this position would be reconsidered in the spring. Thank you.
Councillor Blatz for your comments. Councillor Ryan.
Thank you very much, Mayor Dole. Actually, I didn't support the ME position. I actually did support the HR position, and that's only because it was included in the org review for a person to be in that area. So, and it also brings us back to the level that we were at 2023. And I agree with Councillor Blatz that perhaps we could bring it forward in the springtime.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. And just a few comments and then a request for council. And one is I didn't and don't support the HR admin position, basically because, as I've said before in these meetings, there's no direct line of sight from that position through to how are we going to make and improve and better the quality of life for the residents. I'm not diminishing, I guess, the importance or the potential importance of that role. I just don't see a direct line of sight, as I do with the municipal enforcement officer and being proactive in that area. Further, when I look at a presentation from a previous council meeting related to, I guess, the employee or the staff survey, I'm assuming there is some relationship there, and none of the responses in that survey, certainly from a employee satisfaction, from an HR perspective, seem to raise any red flags. So while I appreciate the org review certainly identified a potential opportunity for staffing, the outcome of the recent employee survey that was done in 2025 seems to paint a picture that we're not in crisis mode relative to the operations of the organization, and certainly from an HR side. And unless I'm wrong, I certainly welcome any insight from the CAO. I do overall like the budget as it is now. It's not a fluff budget, as we've said all along. We've struggled with very difficult choices around core essential requirements. So I basically do like the budget as it is now, with one exception, and that's the fact that $10,000 for the library was removed. And I would like council to reconsider adding that $10,000 back to the library. They do provide an essential a safety net, a social safety net within the community, probably even more so as funding as financial pressures for families increase over time and people have to make difficult choices around accessing resources for their families and for their children. I would like to see that 10,000 reinstated. Myself, Councillor Blatz, and Mayor Dahl are on the ICC committee along with the CAO. We have and we continue to have discussions around cost sharing and shared services and costing of those services. Library has come up as well as other areas. I would suggest and like to propose that the 10,000 be reinstated. Let's see where our discussions go through the ICC and our discussions with the county, and then we can perhaps reevaluate in the spring. And at that point, maybe we need to send a communication to the library indicating that going forward, funding decisions by this council and the subsequent council post-October election, there are no guarantees for increases. But at a 10,000 increase, less than 3%, or around 3%, which is the cost of inflation, I would certainly support adding that back into the budget. And I would like, council to reconsider that.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and through you to Director Lindeman. On page 98 of the breakdown, you did mention a 6.6% increase in the budget overall. And then you broke down verbally the amount that was attributed to inflation and the amount that was attributed to new spending. My question is, when we look at the price on pollution impact through the budget increase for 2025, with the price on pollution increasing on April the 1st by a significant amount, do we have any math associated with the cost of that in this percentage of the increase in the budget?
I do not have that. I just want to mention the 6.6 is the tax revenue increase, not the overall budget increase. So that the overall budget increase is the 3.3 or 3.4%. Yeah.
Did I see another hand? Oh, okay. I'll follow up and then Councillor Daly.
Thank you. Is it, I know asking odd numbers at a council meeting that you may not be prepared for is kind of mean. Is there, have you done those calculations to determine what that expected added cost to the municipality is because of the price on pollution that we currently pay, plus the price on pollution that we're going to see as an increase on April the 1st when the federal government changes the rate? And can you make those numbers available to us publicly so that we can share them with the community as well?
Yes, most definitely. So the carbon tax increase in April, we will see have it figured at about a $21,000 increase in 2025 for our total carbon tax that we pay in natural gas and fuel, about $150,000 a year.
So Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, and through you to Director Lindeman. And I may have missed this somewhere along the line, But in regards to our grant coming from the provincial government in the form of LGFF, is this an estimated number that you have in your calculations, or is this something that we've been notified from the provincial government? And if so, what is the percentage of increase or decrease that we've got in comparison from last year?
So it is an actual allocation for 2025, and they have released 2026 as well. I don't have the percentage of increase from last year. I do know last year we received 1.2 million, so it's about a $200,000 increase for 2025. But 2026 is decreasing, so it's going back down to a 1.2, I believe.
Thank you.
So Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dolan. I just wanted to speak to the library, and the reason why I had suggested the $10,000 taking it off in the first place was because of the franchise fees, the massive hit that we took on our franchise fees, over $300,000 loss on our franchise fees. That's a significant amount of money. Having taken a look at that and looking at reduction that we made to the museum of $5,000 out of their only $50,000 budget, and then we're asking the library to take $10,000 out of their $500,000 plus budget, I think is a very small amount of money that we could save just a little bit in order to put towards some of these project items that we have on the list. Putting $10,000 back into the trails or back into the sidewalk that administration had looked at perhaps reducing. So I'm bringing those back up to the $30,000, $40,000 mark. And it's important, and those were pretty high on the budget survey that we had for wanting, the community wanting to have good trails and maintenance of those trails. That was a significant percentage of the population wanted that. So I think that that's probably a better spend at this point. That's the only point I wanted to make. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, and then we'll go back to Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just want to make one comment here before we go to the vote and all that stuff on this here, and that's I support the budget as it stands today. A lot of good work and debate, although it's not perfect. No one at the table, I think, agrees that it's a perfect budget, because we all want billions of dollars extra given to us to spend. But considering the tremendous constraints that were put onto us this year, as Councillor Ryan had mentioned, the significant loss of one of our ratepayers, which is I think about $500,000 in revenue that we've lost because of that. As I mentioned earlier, the price on pollution going up to $150,000 in 2025, and get another tax that we're being charged by the federal government to pay, which means less programming that we're able to provide to our community. I think this budget provides a great balance between what we can afford, what our citizens can afford, and what our citizens have been asking for over the years. $10,000 here, $10,000 there will make no real significant difference in the overall impact of the budget. I think the 4 or 5 meetings that we've had so far, deliberating over and over again what we see here today as our end result, has been a great work, and I applaud both administration for their great effort in putting together projects that we could support, and keeping the fluff down as much as possible, considering the huge financial constraints this year brought to us. Hopefully we can move forward with some new investment in the town, to correct some of those mistakes that we've made in the past with regards to those individual taxpayers, like the one we just lost last year. So that's what I wanted to finish off as a statement. Again, applauding the CAO and his team for coming up with a great overall budget.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Dolan. Again, my rationale around the 10,000, and I'll be brief. It doesn't sound like there's support around the table. But our families are coming under more and more pressure, as we all know and as we all are, as far as being able to afford services, and the library fulfills that need to a great extent in terms of affordable services, if not free services, to a segment of the population, and I don't know what segment it is. I'm not bold enough to predict how many families are in that segment, but it does fulfill a need for a segment of the population in our town and in our county that rely on the library. And as I mentioned, ICC, and we are working to increase around discussions around the shared costs. The town, we all know, contributes about 75% of the OML, Olds Municipal Library budget. The county is somewhere around 9 or 10. The province, the other 15%. So there are some opportunities there that we're going to continue to pursue, but if I stack up 10,000, and I'm not certainly advocating that we take money from trail maintenance or sidewalk maintenance, this would simply be 10,000 incremental to the 35,887,000 that we have there now.
Thank you. Councillor Walsh?
Yeah, Councillor Wilson has my support for the 10,000 for the library. And he's right. The programming and everything appeals to a lower income segment of our community, and it does benefit a lot of people, and it's free. But on the other side of that, would probably, doesn't bother me, but we've approved 2% COLA for our staff. And I just see the library staff as part of municipal staff, and most of that was going to their increases also. So, yeah, I would support adding that 10,000 back in.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Councillor Blatt?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl, for the opportunity, and going back to our HR admin position. I noticed on page 109, if we look at our salaries, wages, and benefits, and in corporate services in the Office of the CEO, the Office of the CEO is going down in 2024, again, up in 2025. Or the corporate services is going down, but the Office of the CAO, which HR has been under, is going down significantly this year. Now, are we moving the one HR position out into Sheena's department, as we originally was the intent of the organizational review?
This was just strictly allocation changes that were made in 2025, but it is not the shift of HR to the corporate services at this point.
Okay, I was just wondering if the payroll and benefits was going to come under finance, and if that was just going to leave one HR person into the department, because therefore then I still see the need for that. But that's how I think that I'd like to see it done.
Thank you. We've had quite a lot of answers and some very good questions. Are there any further? One more I see over with Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. So my question would just simply be then, regarding the request, my request to add 10,000 back to the budget, how does that happen? Is that just a straw poll around the horseshoe, or is it a motion, or do we let it die on the vine as right now?
It's a good question. We could do a consensus around the table, absolutely. So your ask is that it be put, $10,000 be put back in the budget for the next round that comes back to council.
That would be
Decision.
correct. Yeah, yeah. Instead of whatever it is, the 35.887 million, we would simply add 10,000 back into the library budget as it was back on whatever, November 25th or something like that.
Well, I'll go around the table for a consensus. You can, okay, a nod? Two? No. Okay, I'm sorry, it's been defeated. Well, anything further before I start calling for motions? All right, then I will ask for a motion, please, for item 1, operating budget. Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the 2025 operating budget in the amount of $35,887,272 be approved as presented, and
As presented, thank you very much. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? Opposed? What's your vote? I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand. Okay, I didn't see your hand high enough. That's carried. And who would like to do item 2 for the financial plan? Councillor Ryan?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the 2026 to 2028 financial plan be approved as information.
Approved as information. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That's carried. Item 3, capital budget. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the 2025 capital budget in the amount of $5,524,000 be approved as presented.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. All those, I will call for the vote. All those in favor? That is carried. And finally, the 5-year capital plan. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I make the motion that the 2026 through to 2030 5-year capital plan be approved as information.
Very good. I will call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank administration for your details shared with us today. I'm sorry, Councillor Wilson, you have something?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Dahl. I'd like to perhaps make a motion, unless I get told otherwise. I'd like to make a motion, directing the council direct the CAO to approach the executive director of the Olds Municipal Library, just to quantify and give council an idea of the impact of not getting the $10,000 in funding and financing. This is not a request for the administration and the town to do that, or the CAO. This would simply be ask the CAO to approach the municipal library management and have them give us an idea on what the not getting $10,000 in funding would mean. We've speculated around the table that it may be inconsequential and immaterial, but it would be nice to have that information, especially if we're going to be considering adjustments at some time in 2025. There may be an opportunity there, depending on the impact of the programming available and offered. So that's the motion I'd like to put on the table. Direct the CAO to approach the Olds Municipal Library for a determination on what the impact of not getting that funding is to their programming and services.
You certainly can put a motion on the floor, and the vote will determine your question. Are there any further questions? We have the motion on the floor from Councillor Wilson. Those in favor? Opposed? I'm sorry, that's defeated. Okay, moving please to page 125 of your agenda. And now we're at correspondence and information. You see in front of you the letters that are involved. I'll get a motion on the floor, and if we wish to speak to them, we can speak to them then. Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the correspondence and information report ending December 9th, 2024 be received for information.
Very good, Councillor Daly. Does council have questions to any of these correspondence? We have more coming in as we speak, so it's very good that we've got some communication going through the office of the CAO and myself to bring back to you. No questions? Councillor Ryan.
Not really a question, but a comment, and I just wanted to thank Mayor Dahl, for putting that letter out to the Minister of Affordability and Utilities. Very, very well put together. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your comments, and if there's no further questions, then I will call for the vote from Councillor Daly that's on the floor. Those in favor? That is carried. Very good. Moving over to item 8 is on page 137, our council reports. And I believe the reports that we have in here are myself as mayor. We have Councillor Blatz, Councillor Daly, Councillor Ryan. So who are we missing? Where's yours? I thought you had one, Councillor Wilson. Okay, well, I'm going to be looking from Deputy Mayor Cummings, Councillor Walsh then, and yourself. So you can start, Councillor Wilson.
All right, I'll be brief. More on the social side, just 2 interesting events I attended. One was the Battle of the Broncos Saturday night. Great event, a little bit of a different format change. They incorporated the U13 Olds Minor Hockey girls into the program, and it was a nice night and well-attended. So congrats to both the fire and all the protective services. And then as well, I attended the Olds and District Special Family Voices International Day of Persons with Disability. And it was nice just to have and see people having fun and enjoying the day at the event. So that's it for me.
Go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So just a couple of unique things for me. Where am I going? Well, I had the chance to chair the Committee of the Whole meeting last week. That was an interesting meeting. Got a lot of work done on our budget and stuff like that. I was re-elected to the chairperson position of the Mountain View Regional Waste Management Commission this morning. It's interesting how you always win when nobody else runs, so that was pretty good. I also attended the International Day for the Persons for Disabilities at the Legion. Every event that has cake at the end of it does really well, and of course there was lots of dancing and singing, so it was a good event, well turned out. I believe the numbers for the Olds District Special Family Voices was around 45 participants, plus the guests and whatnot, so that worked out really well. I did do some correlation math, some detailed analysis of our Santa Claus parade. It turns out there's more people attend the parade when it's warmer out than when it's cold. For those of you who remember our first Santa Claus parade, minus 55, I think. It gets colder every time I tell it, but this Saturday's weather was so good. I believe we've got record turnouts in my mind anyways. I look forward to our CPCK? CPKC, thank you. New names always mess up with my brain there. So holiday train that's coming on Friday the 13th. Don't be spooked out about that, around 2:30 at the intersection of the tracks and 50th Street. It's always a well turned out. Don't forget to bring your food donation for the food bank. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, and I'd like to add on to all the staff of the Operations Department or helpers to CAO, bouquet to every single one of them. I had nothing but compliments from every person on that parade, right, about what an awesome parade that Olds had. And it's interesting because it's always on the exact same night as Sylvan Lake, and she's always inviting me to go to her parade, and I says, I think it's your turn to come here. I've never made it to her parade because it's always on the same night as ours, but yes, kudos to your staff, Ms. C.O. Williams. Councillor Walsh?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I attended the Chinook Edge Board of Trustees joint meeting with council in Innisfail. Been a good meal, enjoyed that. Attended budget meetings, also Committee of the Whole and Land Use Bylaw and MDP information session. And on December 3rd, there was an EDAC committee meeting, so I attended that.
Okay, Councillor Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor. I put in my report about commenting a little bit about the wastewater commission, and just wanted to say that Reeve Albers is the chair once again, and we had increased the rate by 1 cent. So those were the only two items. Thank you.
I do have a question. Thank you for your report. I noticed that you said that the membership fees for 25 were discussed at the Olds Chamber of Commerce. Are we allowed to know what that fee is?
Didn't settle on it yet.
Thank you very much. That's why I thought you left the number out. Thank you. All right, are there any further questions for anyone? I'd ask for a motion then, please, to accept the reports. Councillor Blatz?
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the reports from council boards, committees, and commissions ending December 9th, 2024 be received for information.
Thank you. We have a motion on the floor. I'll call for the vote. Those in favor? That is carried. And item 9 is our Chief Administrator Office report. C.O. Williams.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. Included in the package is the ongoing action item list, which hasn't changed since last meeting. And the following page is the wrap report for the previous 2 months. I did miss the first meeting of November, so we're doing October and November in here, the total of 56 reports, the bulk of which came in November with Parks and Trails when we had our little hiccup with snow clearing, so that was 41% of that 56 total complaints. Outside of that, fairly standard in terms of road issues and back alley issues made up the bulk of that. Overall, our citywide system, which is the new back end of reporter problem, is working quite well, primarily on the distribution to staff. It's much more automatic, and a built-in follow-up mechanism as well to track that those citizens are getting a response within the 3 business days as accorded from council's policies. On the verbal side, just one thing to report and something council is aware of, but tomorrow, starting in the newspaper and simultaneously on our website, we will have a notification as per Municipal Government Act to dispose of a town-owned property located at 4818 51st Street, which is our large Quonset. The town has entered into a partnership with a local developer to see that property develop into a mixed-use commercial residential space. So we do have to advertise publicly for that because the transaction is below market value. Our intention with that, as discussed previously, is to help initiate the vision of the East Olds Area Structure Plan, which right now the building is a vacant Quonset with no services attached and not much future afforded to it. Through partnering with a private developer, we do hope that transforming that lot into a new commercial residential space will both help our housing needs and start with the rejuvenation of East Olds to be a mix of single-family detached dwellings, which you see on the east side of that neighborhood, a transition zone where our Quonset and smaller Quonset, and now the men's shed, will be the transition of commercial into the industrial side, which is industrial still will front 49th Avenue. So, newspaper tomorrow, a very generic legalese ad will direct people to our website where we'll have a bit more context and color on what we hope to accomplish there over the next year or two in partnership. With that, my report is concluded. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Does council members have any questions for our CEO? Councillor Wilson.
How wide of a berth do we have for the questions? Fairly wide?
That's up to you, Councillor Wilson.
No, I apologize. It's probably a question I should have asked during the budget discussion specific to capital. So if you give me a little bit of leeway. I've had a couple residents ask me, we are investing in a packer and a roller and the mole compressor, all under the umbrella of improving our efficiency around utility digs and road repairs. And citizens have asked me, though, just the asphalt itself, the hot mix, how and where does it come from, and are we still going to be dependent on a third party or other that may impact our timeliness and ability to do those repairs, even though we've now got equipment and we're planning to do more of that in-house? Are we still going to be dependent on sourcing and supply and others to help us do those repairs in a timely manner? Thank you.
That's such a good question. I'm going to direct that to Director Pedro to answer.
Fantastic question. Honestly, there will be no impact in that service. So currently we get our asphalt from a plant in Red Deer. They've been quite good to work with over the years. They're pretty much always running, and they're quite available to provide us with any volume that we need. Should that plant not be available, there are a number of other options within the radius that we need. So whether it's Airdrie or there's a few in Rocky View County as well. So there's lots of availability of supply. So there's no concerns on our end for that. I will say over the years I've never been without a source of asphalt, so I don't foresee Olds being in that position.
Good, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll call on Councillor Daly, please, to make a motion to receive the CAO report.
Thank you, Mayor Dahl. I move that the Chief Administrative Officer report be accepted for information.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. I'll call for the vote then. All in favor? That is carried. Very good. Just a note that we will be moving into a closed session. So when we go into a closed session for continued participation in the virtual council meeting, stay online with the live streaming meeting platform, and the meeting stream will be replaced by a graphic. When the graphics are removed, that will indicate that the meeting is ready to reconvene. I would ask at this time if I could get a motion, please, to move to closed session. Councillor Walsh, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was looking for my screen. Move to go into closed session. My memory serves me, now it's on screen, okay. Disclosure harmful to business interests, so section 16 under FOIP.
And that would be
Economic development.
at 2:41 p.m.
Yes.
I will call for the vote. Those in favor? Oh, sorry. Yes, all members are present. We'll just give our reporter a moment to leave. Those in favor? That's carried. Welcome back. Thank you for your patience. For those that have reconvened with us, we will now rise and report on our closed item. I'll call on Councillor Ryan.
Thank you very much, Mayor Dahl. I move to accept the presentation from Economic Development for information.
Thank you, Councillor Ryan. Those in favor? That is carried, and I will adjourn the meeting at 3:53 p.m.